Hello, friends. You're halfway there. It is the first sip for your Wednesday. Welcome back to Bakes on Things. I'm Chris Baker. Listen, let me tell you about a story that should have led every national newscast in the last few days. A story that should have been the only topic in Canadian talk radio across this country. A story that in any country with a functioning moral compass would have forced every politician out of their cozy talking points and onto the hot seat. But instead, we have, as usual, silence, delay, shrugs, a couple of small town media outlets picking up the pieces, and once again a conservative MP shining a light on things, Michelle Rempel Garner being the only person in Ottawa willing to stand up and say, enough, absolutely enough. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things. I'm Chris Baker. Because this is a story about paperwork, this isn't a story about red tape, it kind of doesn't get attention. This is a story about a 13-year-old girl in Ontario who was groomed. Bad things happened. She was impregnated, not once but twice, by a 47-year-old adult man who is not even a Canadian citizen. Two pregnancies, 2 years of systemic abuse, court orders ignored, release conditions broken again and again. And when this predator finally shuffled into court to face accountability in this country, we gave him, the perpetrator, remember, time to weigh how pleading guilty might affect his immigration status. Let that one sink in for a second. Not how to protect the girl, not how to prevent him from hurting anyone else, not how to deliver justice in a country that claims to value its women and children. No. We gave him time to consider his immigration options. If this doesn't make your blood boil as a Canadian, you need to check your pulse. But of course, you probably didn't hear anything about it because it's been buried in the newspapers and on the news as deeply as possible. And here's the part that elevates this case from horrifying to absolutely deranged. A Liberal MP actually stood in the House of Commons 2 days before this case was reported, 2 days, and said, in arguing against Michelle Rempel Garner's Bill C-220, if someone is going out doing bad things to another individual, do we really believe they'll get special treatment from a judge? I'm not even exaggerating. That is literally what he said. And then, 48 hours later, the exact scenario he mocked in the House of Commons as impossible actually happened. A non-citizen accused of doing terrible things to a 13-year-old did get special treatment. He was granted an adjournment, not to gather evidence for his case, not to protect the victim in any way, but to instead consider how a guilty plea might affect his ability to stay in this country. You cannot make this crap up now in this country. It's ridiculous. It's beyond incompetence. It's beyond tone deafness. It's an institutional failure and a moral one at that. And that is why Michelle Rempel Garner's bill matters and must pass, because what she is exposing is not a one-off. She listed 7 cases, that's right, 7, where judges openly handed out lighter sentences to non-citizens of this country, specifically to avoid triggering a deportation, a criminal, to avoid deportation. This isn't conspiracy. This isn't even speculation. This is happening in black and white, in courtroom transcripts all across the country. A two-tier justice system where Canadian citizens face the full weight of the law and non-citizens get a softer landing because the judge doesn't want to ruin their chance at staying here. Excuse me? Should they even stay here at all? How is that even fair? How is that moral? How is that even remotely in line with the principles of a sovereign nation? It makes zero sense to me, and it should make zero sense to you. And Michelle Rempel Garner, to her credit, didn't sugarcoat any of it. She asked the Liberals directly, will you admit that you were wrong here? Will you admit the system is failing? Will you admit your assumptions about judicial discretion are divorced from reality? And what do you think the response was? I'll give you pause to put it in the comments. The Liberal MP, Ruby Sahota, delivered the kind of answer that feels like it was pulled out of an old comms binder from 2017. There are provisions in place. CBSA prioritizes criminal cases. Great. Wonderful. Nice. Very nice theory. But what does theory mean when judges are deliberately crafting sentences below the deportation threshold to keep offenders here? What does the theory mean when a 13-year-old child is impregnated by a grown adult who ignored court orders and kept offending upon release? And we're going to worry about whether he's going to potentially get deported or not? And more importantly, why wasn't this a national outrage? Why is this just buried on page 8 of every news site? Why wasn't this a breaking news alert? Why wasn't this plastered across every CBC, CTV, and global newscast? Why aren't the same journalists who spent years obsessing over phantom disinformation or online memes digging their claws into this? Do you know what the media talked about that day instead? Polls and smearing Pierre Poilievre again, photo ops, their favorite Trump tariff narratives, all of that before this story even hit any airwave. Meanwhile, a 13-year-old girl's life is forever changed by trauma, and the system bent over backwards to accommodate her abuser and not protect her. If there was ever a moment for Canadian media to break their protect the narrative habit, this was it. And they didn't do it. They failed. And yet it was Michelle Rempel Garner again, standing alone, shouting into the void, being met with smirks from liberal benchers and arguments that somehow judicial independence requires us to let foreign criminals stay in Canada after committing crimes that would get any Canadian locked away for literally decades. Probably re-released by the Liberals again, we understand that, but at least initially locked away for decades. Judicial independence is not supposed to mean judicial absurdity. It is not supposed to mean judges practicing immigration activism from their benches. It is not supposed to mean bending sentencing to avoid deportation for predators in this country. It means applying the law as it is written equally, regardless of immigration status, regardless of passport, regardless of whose feelings might get hurt in all of this. Are we done with woke Canada yet? Because we should be. And Michelle Rempel Garner's point is this, which the media should, by the way, be amplifying nonstop. It is that we've created a justice system where the criminal gets consideration and the victim gets excuses. That's what we've created here, where the court gently protects the future of the offender. Well, the victim's future is, I don't know, shattered completely, where ideology, not safety, drives decisions. And the media, in their silence, have become complicit in every piece of this puzzle. Every single one of them. Every single corner, every single jagged little piece. This should be a national reckoning. Instead, it's a Conservative MP shouting alone in a wind tunnel against the wind. Bill C-220 is not a racist bill. It is not discriminatory in any way. It is not anti-immigrant. It is a bill that says the justice system should treat serious crimes as serious crimes, and that protecting Canadians takes priority over protecting the residency status of the people who victimize those Canadians. In any functioning society, which this one is starting to feel like it isn't, this would be a common sense move. In Canada 2025, it's somehow controversial. If Michelle Rempel Garner hadn't raised this in Parliament, you would not have heard about it at all. You would not even know it had happened. The victim would be invisible to you. The outrage would be buried completely and right off the news radar, and the case would quietly slip past national attention while the courts carefully weigh how to keep a child destroyer, essentially, inside Canada's borders. That's what it would have done. This is why media attention matters. This is why leadership matters in our country. And this is why the Conservatives, and frankly Canadians, with a shred of decency, need to push this issue into the spotlight even further, until the political establishment aka the liberals, has no choice but to acknowledge its existence and its necessity. This is not a partisan fight. This is a moral fight. This is much like the topic we talked about last night by not acknowledging the attacks in the US. And the media needs to stop failing this country by ignoring these things. Because if a story like this can happen in silence, if a 13-year-old can be abused, exploited, impregnated, and the national press yawns and moves on, then what else is being ignored in this country that we don't even know about? What else is happening in the shadows because political correctness demands that it stay in the shadows? How many victims will never see justice because judges are more worried about someone's immigration paperwork than their own safety? Bill C-220 is a reminder that Canada has drifted dangerously far from its own reality. And Michelle Rempel Garner, kudos to her, is right, absolutely right, to defend and to demand, furthermore, that we stop treating non-citizen criminals with kid gloves. We either fix this or we admit the truth. Canada's justice system does not work for the vulnerable. It works for the criminal. It works for the violent. And the media is helping it stay that way. Thanks for watching Bakes on Things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, join the conversation down below on this. When you heard about all of this, what did you think? You have to be appalled here. I don't care if you're liberal, NDP, conservative, green, independent, whatever you are, this should appall each and every one of you. Much like we said last night on The Last Word, when Mark Carney didn't acknowledge the attacks on American soil, this not getting acknowledged here is just as bad, if not worse. And it's actually quite a bit worse when you really think about it. But put it in the comments. Let's hear you. I want to hear what you have to say. And don't forget to join The Last Word today, just after 2:45, when we'll end the day, hopefully, on some kind of positive note here. Thanks for watching. And of course, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.